Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have a really fun guest tonight, you know, local young woman, college basketball player who has what I think, and I've done a little homework, I think a tremendous story around resilience, and when you hear this story, you're gonna do nothing but say, holy smokes, what a strong rebound, no pun intended with basketball. But welcome to the show, Kayla Richardson. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, good. I have a ton of questions to ask you. And I just can't wait for everybody to hear your story because you and I had a chat on the phone, a little while back, and I was just amazed at everything you had to overcome, physically as well as mentally
Mhm.
to achieve what you have achieved. But before I start grilling you and asking all kinds of questions, just, there's a bunch of people out there listening, wondering like, who is this young lady?
Mhm.
So if you don't mind, just give a quick hello and where you're from and a little bit about you.
Yep. I'm Kayla Richardson. I'm from Red Bank, New Jersey. I went to Middletown South High School, so I'm a local kid. I spent my freshman year playing basketball at LaSalle, and then I transferred back home to Monmouth University. I am a psych major, and I'm currently getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and can't wait to dive into the psychology and counseling world. And yeah, it's a little bit about me. I'm someone who loves to chat, super outgoing. Always loved being in Jersey and being a local kid. So yeah.
Nothing like growing up in the Jersey world. And plus, you're in a beautiful spot, Red Bank. It doesn't get much
Perfect.
nicer than that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So if you think of the Jerseyites for a second, there's
Hmm.
always a debate. Are
Hmm.
you North Jersey, South Jersey, Central Jersey? Well, like what do you say you're at?
I think we are Central Jersey. I think we are literally right in the middle.
Okay.
And people debate there's no Central Jersey. Da, da, da. I definitely think that we are Central Jersey because we
Okay.
don't have I feel like Northern Jersey has their lingo and South Jersey has their lingo and their thing, and Central Jersey is all about the shore beach life. I
Yeah.
just think I think we're Central Jersey, but
Yeah.
that's up for debate.
I always say, hey, anything south of the Driscoll Bridge,
Hmm.
that's South Jersey.
Hmm.
But that's still probably another 45 minutes north of you.
Right.
But it's always that debate.
Yep.
Then it's what, Taylor ham or pork roll, right?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I say pork roll, but I don't actually like it. And all
Okay.
people are like, "You're from Jersey, you have to." No, it's not for me.
All
But I
right.
definitely say pork roll.
All right. I'm a Taylor ham guy.
Mm.
That's good. So my first question I want to ask you, there's so many things you could have done, right? Sports wise, and what inspired you to, high school say, you know what, I'm going to play at the next level. But you're not just playing at the next any level. You're playing at a very high level. What made you choose that? What inspired you to want to do that?
So when I was young, actually, my parents, I told them I wanted to be an athlete when I was really young. And so my parents enrolled me in the YMCA in every single sport. Tried every single sport there was to offer. I really liked soccer, and then I fell in love with basketball. And I was always a tall kid, so everyone's like, "Oh, you should play basketball," and I was like, "I don't want to be the typical." And then I just started playing basketball, and then I grew up in Florida until about fifth, sixth grade, and Southern basketball is obviously just different than Northern basketball. And when I moved to the Jersey Shore, what most people don't know is that Jersey Shore is a huge mecca for girls basketball. It's a huge conference. There's so much talent, even just the state of New Jersey in general.
Hmm.
And I started training at this place down in Neptune, and I just fell in love with the competition, the camaraderie, the family aspect of it, and how supported the girls basketball community is in the Monmouth County area. And I just was like, this is so cool. And then you also have those direct role models that you can look at. This girl went to my high school, this girl went to the high school next to me, this girl went to the high school 2 feet from me, this girl went to the other high school, and they all made it. And so there was that drive and that push of they can do it, I can do it. And there's always that support and just always a place to go to understand recruiting and understand the ins and outs of certain things. And
Yeah.
so in high school, really, really eighth grade, ninth grade, when I started playing AAU heavily and surrounding myself with other players that were at that caliber, I realized that most of it was I realized I was good enough. That's one of the things that you either realize or you don't sometimes. And sometimes it just takes
Mhm.
that confidence to like
Yeah.
go against a player who has a division offer and be like, oh, I can hold my own. And that was kind of like where my journey started when I was like, wait, like this is actually a real possibility.
Now, how old were you then?
That was probably like my freshman year. My freshman year, I trained with a lot of girls who were like juniors and seniors who were about to leave for college or like were making their decisions. And we used to play one on one a lot in like scrimmages. And I used to play with them. And at first I was really scared. And then they would like be like, oh, come back. Like you're doing so well. Like we're so impressed with you. Like you can definitely like make an impact in college basketball. And like I think you should try for it. And then once they said that, I was like, okay, sure. Like let's try. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before Southern basketball, Northern basketball. Talk about the difference between the two.
Yeah, so Northern basketball, I feel like is very skill based. Like it's super, like the girls in the North train. Like we get out of school at 2 o'clock and we train from 2 o'clock to 8 p.m. every night, and then we travel on weekends every weekend to play AU. In the South, it's I feel like the Southern culture, at least being in Jacksonville, sometimes with my dad, that they play multiple sports. Like you'll have a D1 soccer player who also is a D1 basketball player, and like they're more fast, speed, athletic. And so sometimes when you combine the two, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I'm not the most athletic and I'm not the fastest. So me moving up north was like the better decision because I learned how to be really skilled and be like a really high IQ player.
Wow. So what do you prefer? South or North?
I I prefer playing with I don't know actually. I probably prefer north just because I understand it a little more.
Okay.
And playing against other teams, defending them is not fun.
Now, where do you think more D1 basketball players come from, the North or the South?
I think the North.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Boston, New York, especially New York, New Jersey, Philly, those three alone are like, if you talk about some of the best players, I guess not right now, but if you talk about some of the best players of all time and best players in recruiting like hotspots, that's where I would look. There, like the West Coast, a little bit too. So Southern players are great too, though. Like there's talent everywhere. But
Yeah, they're every place, right?
mhm,
So now, but before we jumped on the show, we started talking a little bit about mom, dad, Marines, which
mhm,
is really cool. FBI, really cool, you
yep,
know. And we talked about discipline. We talked about, the world that you probably grew up in, which was just normal to you, which,
mhm,
and which is what made you who you are.
mhm,
But, talk about how that discipline type of life, right, which is cool,
mhm,
and playing college sports itself combined really contributed to your own personal growth and development there. Because I would
yeah.
imagine they had to combine together.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the one thing that people don't necessarily like put emphasis on is the discipline of what it takes to be a high level athlete. And I think a lot of people contribute like, oh, you have to work hard, but there's an intentionality about when you work hard and like a purpose. And that comes with like, the discipline of it. Like if you are a great 3 point shooter and everyone knows that and everyone tells you that, but they always tell you like you can't dribble with your left hand, like part of being disciplined is going into the gym and working on your left hand and not necessarily just sitting there and shooting threes. And that was something that I really prided myself on was that I was always a taller player. So everyone kind of just wanted me to be a five, but I wanted to be able to be diverse and diverse player in all aspects, playing 2 through 4, 2 through 5, whatever I could. And so I was super disciplined on like um regimenting my schedule, like managing things, also putting emphasis on things outside of sports, which is also something that takes a lot of discipline because a lot of athletes we like make our sport our life, which makes sense, but there is a sense of discipline of like, hey, like my body is telling me I need an off day. It's that discipline to also take the off day. Like you don't that's and this is discipline of also like maybe I need to condition more, maybe I need to lift more, maybe I need to watch film. Like there's different aspects that contribute to that. And I grew up in a household where like all of those things were all equal. Like,
Which is normal.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
automatic.
And also discipline comes too with like pushing yourself. Like you have to have that discipline within you because especially when you get to college, like you're not, no one's gonna like hold your hand. Like you
Right.
have to be able to learn that young and like just get a routine and a regimen and figure out what works for you.
Well, let's talk about discipline for a second, because the typical traditional student, for lack of better words, right?
Mhm.
When they hear the word discipline, they think negativity.
Hmm.
You think, oh, you're being disciplined, like you did something wrong or
Hmm.
whatever. But can you talk about what it takes to be a disciplined college athlete with all the aspects of life you got to deal with? You know,
Hmm.
your academics, practice, games, injury, social life. Like, how do you keep the discipline going when you, like you said before, it's a choice.
Hmm.
How do you do that when you have all those things to juggle?
I just think um, a big thing is like staying present. I think sometimes you look at all of those things like the injuries, the academics, the travel, the games, the practice, and you're like, oh my God, like this is too much, it's overwhelming. But I think if you take everything step by step and like, okay, like, today I have practice at 2 and from 2 to 4, and then I have an assignment due tomorrow. Like, okay, I'm gonna set a time at alarm at 5 o'clock. From 5 to 7, I'm gonna do that assignment. And you have to have those things in place, because if you just look at it and you're like, oh my God, I have this assignment and then I have rehab and then I have this and I have that, like it's going to be so overwhelming. You're gonna be like, it's not even like a discipline thing at that point. You're just like, I don't think I can do it. But part of being disciplined is also like giving yourself a roadmap. Like that was a big thing for me of like, in order for me to stay on top and stay disciplined in all aspects of my life, I really needed to plan out when I was going to eat, when I was going to get treatment, when I was going to nap was a big one for me, when I was going to get assignments done, whether that means writing it out, putting on like setting an alarm, like something that's like tells you like, hey, this time right now is allocated to this. And to me, like that discipline of one, planning that out, and two, following it was huge, because it made you realize that you have to do it. Like you do have to do it all, but you don't have
Yeah.
to like look at it as such a big thing. It could be, broken down into,
It's like chunk it out,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yep.
Okay. So you kind of just answered my next question, but figure what kind of valuable lessons do you think that you learned, right,
Mhm.
from being a college athlete, especially at your level?
Yeah. Time management, huge one. I mean, that's the typical that everyone says, being able to time manage. But I think a lot of the one of the biggest things that I think I took away was like interpersonal skills, how to speak on how I feel, and also to like having confidence in myself and listening to myself was like a big thing I learned throughout my career. And that changed from freshman year to senior year of like, I'll take that with me in jobs of like having confidence in myself and being able to vocalize what I need to vocalize in a respectful, professional way. Cause you kind of have to, like, when you're dealing with your player, this is your coach, that's like a boss for us. So
Yeah.
like learning how to do that and manage other stresses in life is like, it ultimately prepares you for anything.
Yeah. So you just said that you have to listen to yourself. Some people are wondering, like, what does she mean by that? Like, can you
Mhm.
get deeper into that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, um, us as athletes, like we know sometimes we need a day, or like we know we need to take an off day. We know like, hey, like I need this, whatever it is. Could be like some people like reading, some people like listening to music, going on a drive. Like listen to what you're telling yourself. One, listen to yourself in the sense of, is this the right place for me? Is this the right school for me? Is this the right sport for me? Is this the right career path, life path? That's a huge thing. But a lot of times in athletics, like you have to be able to decipher, like, is this a real injury or is this just aches and pains? And if
Mm,
you, in your heart of hearts, like you feel like it's an injury, like you should say something, or like whether or not a coach is going to listen to you or not, but like being able to say, like, you know what, like I'm just having a bad day, and if I only have 60% today of me, I have to give that 60%, but that's all I have. And like being able to listen to that and listen to your body and your mental, and like being able to be aware of that. Because I think
yeah.
sometimes as athletes, we like kind of just like, lock it away, push it away,
Yeah.
like whatever, which is great for certain situations. But there's also times where it's okay to like really understand why you're feeling a certain way, why you had a bad practice, why your knee hurts, why you have a headache, like why you're stressed, like being able to recognize those
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
So as an athlete, when you're juggling all that stuff,
Mhm.
how did you realize you were in the right place? How did you realize that what you were doing was right? Because there's got to be a lot of young girls and guys out there that are trying to figure that out. Like, hey, did I
Mhm.
make the right choice? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing?
Mhm.
How did you figure that out?
I mean, it was like an everyday thing, and I know that's like scary to say, but that's really the truth of like, like really like evaluating: is this beneficial? Does this still bring me joy? And like, I think sometimes that's the biggest thing is also what's your purpose in this? Like, is your purpose to get a free education? Is it to play professionally? Is it to earn networking? Is it to earn life skills? Or are you here to like just play basketball because you love the sport or play your sport because you love it? And those are something you also have to determine. For me, like I loved basketball, but there's also so many other aspects to playing collegiate basketball that I loved. I loved having a community. I loved having family, sisters, resources, networking, all of those things brought me so much like security when like graduating. That was something that I've kept telling myself of like, yeah, I love the sport, but there's also so many other benefits. And I think really breaking down your intentions of like, what do you want to get out of this? And if you're like, hey, I just playing this because I love the sport, and you get to a point where you're like, I don't love the sport anymore, like that's a time where you should really evaluate. And two, like also evaluating whether or not the spot you're in is right. Like for me, I was at LaSalle my freshman year, and I knew just it. I wasn't myself. Like I wasn't like a bubbly, like super happy kid when I was there, and so I knew like, hey, like something is just off. And that's what I mean by like listening to yourself. Of like, part of me was like telling myself like, oh, you're a freshman, like it's just hard. But there was also a huge part of me was like, just not the right spot for me.
Wasn't the right fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you said families, you said sisters. Talk
Yeah.
about that, because that's another thing that I think as an athlete, and I talk about this a lot on all the different shows that I do because it comes up all the time.
Mhm.
Is the team, the camaraderie, the brothers, the sisters, right? Explain that, what that means to you.
Yeah, it's like so hard to even like put into words. Um, your teammates are really like family. Like people don't realize I've spent more time with my collegiate teammates than I have like my own actual family members.
Yeah.
You just spend so much time together, and I feel like it's really hard for athletes to connect with other people on a personal level about struggles that they're going through. And like these people, your teammates are like going through it with you. Like they're in the same boat. They're trying to manage all these different things. And it's so like nice to be able to lean on that. You live with each other, you practice together, you travel. Like you're also in such a transitional phase of your life when you're like entering college at 18, you're leaving at 21, 22. Like those are huge years for you to figure
Yeah.
out yourself. And like I've had teammates who really like found themselves, and like because they had us to lean on and we had each other to lean on, and you just walk away with like this sense of sisterhood that it's hard to find.
Yeah.
And because they understand, and like a lot of people who don't play a sport in college like don't really understand. Like they're like, oh, I get it's hard, but then you also have people who are like, oh, well, it's free school, and it's like you don't really understand until you're in it.
Yeah.
And it's not even just your teammates. Like you have soccer players. Like for me, it was like soccer players, field hockey, football, men's basketball. Like we all are this big community, and you
Yeah.
just walk away with such big support.
Yeah. And what's cool about that is it doesn't even have to be the athletes from your school.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
take a trip, you're on, let's say you're on the beach down the
Mm-hmm.
shore, Jersey Shore, and you're hanging out, and somebody says, oh, I played college basketball. You're like, what? You like
Yep.
hear that from 50 feet away. And you
Yeah.
look like, do I know her? Like, next thing you know,
Yeah.
you're like, you want to get up and go talk to her,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
with that's what it is.
Yeah.
You tune everything else is just kind of that you're hearing is just like vibrations,
Yeah.
but then certain words, boop, you hear them.
Mhm. And it's also like people, I don't think sometimes know, but like, I don't know in other sports, I can speak on basketball. Like you play AAU, which is like travel basketball that's like intense. Starting like fifth grade. Like I know people from like Minnesota, Cali,
Yeah.
Colorado, like girls
Yeah.
who I'm like, they post an Instagram picture, I'm like, oh my God, you look so cute. Or like, congrats on your commitment. Like I've probably spoken to them twice in the AAU event, but it's
Yeah.
like, you still feel comfortable because you're like in this like world. And like the basketball, girls basketball world, especially like is this like a big, big sisterhood. Like
Yeah.
in AAU tournaments, you're sitting there like with six different teams in the lobby playing card games. And like now you're watching these girls go to college and you're playing against them. Like, and it's such a cool like feeling, like you said, like not even at your own school. Like we've played
Right.
teams all the time, and every single time we play a team, there's someone on my team who knows someone on the other team. And
Right.
it's really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing what's going on with women's basketball right now.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Like
Mhm.
and I hope you don't take offense to this, but
Mhm.
I've never really been a basketball watcher.
Yeah.
Like when it's playoffs,
Yeah.
the college tournaments, if LeBron's playing like
Right.
big
Yeah.
games, like then I'll stop and watch. But I'm not get like, I've never been that. But now, like, is Caitlin Clark playing? Like,
Right. Yeah.
is Liberty on? Like, who's
Yeah.
playing?
Yeah.
Like the Olympics. I'm like, when are the girls on? Like,
Yep.
I didn't care about watching the men. I'm
Right.
like, it's who cares? When are the girls on? You
Hmm.
know, I shouldn't say girls, or women. When are the women on? You
Yeah,
know, because for some reason it just seems more exciting.
it is. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really explain it, but it's what it
Yeah.
seems to me.
I think girls are now like feeling okay to like express themselves on and off the court. And I think that
Yeah,
was a big thing. Where like generations before us, like you were like, you guys are female athletes. Like we would get in trouble for like, talking a little smack or like doing
it's
whatever.
great watching that.
And like hitting, like not hitting physically, but like, a little bump here and
Elbows, yeah,
there.
bumps,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that was all like not okay in the girls' game. And it was criticized. And I think now, players are like, whatever, like
But,
I'm gonna be me.
but to that point,
Hmm.
you figure 10 years ago, let's use that
Yeah.
as a time frame, when that was kind of, let's say, criticized,
Hmm.
nobody wanted to watch it.
Right.
Now it's happening, and you're watching the girls jaw at each other and bump each other, and they're like the girls going up for a layup, they're
Hmm.
getting hammered. Like whoa, that's pretty
Yeah.
intense stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and then you
Hmm.
watch all the girls are banging out from 3-point land, banging in the shots. Like this is fun to watch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really cool. So think about for a second pressure. You just talked about all kinds of stuff but think about the pressure of college sports.
Yeah.
How did you handle that type of pressure? And again, people don't understand what goes on in your head
Hmm.
for that. Talk about the pressure you had to deal with and how it was a daily, weekly, monthly routine and how you handle that.
Yeah. So I think my first 2 years in college, I really felt pressure. I think especially coming home to Monmouth, when I was like a local kid, everyone kind of knew who I was. I feel like I had like a reputation to like uphold, and like there was just so much pressure to like, okay, like I didn't necessarily have the best experience at LaSalle. Like I felt like moving to Monmouth, if I didn't have that a good experience, it was like now it's my fault. And so like there was that pressure of like what is my fault and what's other things like and all that type of stuff. And then one of my coaches at Monmouth had said like instead of looking at pressure as a negative, like think about it as pressure as privilege. Like it's such a privilege to have this pressure. And like it sounds kind of like silly, but when you think about it like that, you think of it as a positive of
Yeah.
like I'm so privileged to have this type of pressure of like people are like have such high expectations for me and they believe in me so much to
Mm.
manage these things and to be a good player and to be a good student that I do have these pressures and like looking at that as a privilege or also just as a goal. Like you can look at it instead of like, oh, I have to show up every day and be great, or I have to do well in this exam. Like you could be like, this is my goal. Like I hope I do well in this exam instead of putting in your head like if I don't do well, it's gonna be like and changing your mindset. I think that was a big thing for me is like changing the mindset of how I look at the pressure and where it's coming from too.
And pressure, like you said, pressure's a privilege, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how cool is that for a second to know that your coaches and your teammates want you in there during that pressure situation?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want somebody else. They want you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't give her the ball.
Yeah.
Put her in there.
Yeah.
Like, talk about how you feel about handling that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been like so fun. Like it's so rewarding to like know that people who like are your peers. It's just like in every other thing in life, like your peers, knowing your peers have so much trust in you and you have so much trust in them is like so cool. And like it just gives you this sense of like calmness. Like, especially when I was in high school and like we were in big moments and my teammates were like, like Kayla's got it. And I was like, you know what? I guess I do. Like, thanks, guys. Like, and it just made you take a second to like appreciate that, appreciate them, appreciate the work. And, a lot of the things that we say, the more you prepare for moments, the more those moments don't feel as heavy.
So true. The more you
Yeah.
prepare, the more confidence you have.
Yeah. It's just like people always say, like, stay ready, don't get ready. Like stuff
Mm.
like that, like those sayings. And like they sound so cliche, but they're actually really helpful. Like my coach at Monmouth used to say, like, replace the worry with work. Like if you put in the time every day to like shoot 10 free throws and done pressure free throws, pressure layups and stuff like that, then like you won't be as worried in those moments when your teammates are trusting you to make a free throw or make a layup. Like that's why the best players, the Caitlin Clarks, the Angel Reese's, the Pages, like they don't fall under pressure, like because they put in that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you just said. Replace the worry with work.
Yeah. My head
That's
coach at
pretty,
Monmouth, that was her.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
You know, It's like you can make a wristband out of that,
Yeah.
Well, that's
Mhm.
pretty cool. So okay, you had a cool career. What's a lot of ups and downs and craziness.
Mhm.
What's your favorite moment? What stands out the most? Like, man, this was the coolest time in my life.
Yeah. Um, I have two. So, and they're both like kind of injury related, I guess. Um, my first game, not my first game, but a game at LaSalle, I had my freshman year. I was injured coming into the season. And I remember I drove to the basket, made like a really cool pass, like made a layup. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, it was just like such a surreal moment, I think, of like, I overcame this and I'm here in this moment. And then same at LaSalle, not at LaSalle, at Monmouth, my senior year this past season, um, when we played Delaware at home. And I think I hit like two or three threes and I was playing great defense and like seeing like the joy of my teammates and like the fans at Monmouth, the alumni who were there, like it was just such a cool moment to like know that I was going to end my career um, with like such love and support and appreciation from my teammates and my family and friends outside. Like it was just really cool. Like I was like, oh, that's so great. Like there's a lot of ins and outs that happened behind closed doors
Yeah.
that made that moment feel so rewarding.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you just said, Kayla, it's so important for all the younger athletes to hear.
Mhm.
Is you didn't say, well, it was this shot. Well, it was this specific game. Well, it was this rebound. Well, it was this win. You said it was seeing the joy in your teammates' face,
Yeah.
the love and support,
Mhm.
and that's what college sports is all about.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
about winning. It's definitely
Yeah.
winning. It's
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, when the winning and the games are over, what do you have left?
Right.
You have the
Yeah.
joy in each other's faces because trust me, 40 years is going to go by like that. Hey, listen, I don't want to wish your life away,
Yeah.
but it goes quick.
Mhm.
And you forget the wins, you forget the losses. Sometimes you forget the game. Like we played who, when? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And trust me, I have those issues now. But you don't forget the people. You
Right.
don't forget the players. You don't forget the ones that hugged you, the ones that stood by you, that
Mhm.
supported you, that were there for you when you needed somebody.
Yes. Yep.
You forget everything else.
Mhm.
So that's really cool. So, advice.
Mhm.
I don't know how far back we can go
Mhm.
and how young we should talk to. But is it the 8-year-olds? Is it the 10-year-olds? Is it the juniors in high school? What kind of advice can you give the young women who are aspiring? They're the little girls learn how to dribble,
Mhm.
and pass and shoot to the girls that are really have that down, but now they're just trying to figure out what college to go to.
Mhm.
What advice can you give them about that transition into college sports?
I would say don't forget all the work you put in. I think that's a big thing. Your first summer, your first couple months, like they're really hard. And like that's just the honest truth. Like there's a lot of ups and downs that you're going to have to maneuver and navigate through and figure yourself out a little bit, but like really come in with like a solid foundation and values and figure out, what do you want from this experience and how do I achieve that? And remember all the work that you put in, the people who love you, who are like cheering you on from however far away. Like, and I would say also a big thing is like stay in contact with your parents. Like that was a big thing for me. Like talking to my AU coaches, my high school coaches, my trainers who like have seen me since I was like a really young girl to before I left for college. Cause they're like, they always remind you of something so small that seems so like literally so small. And they're like, oh, like, do you remember when you came into workouts one day and you killed it? Like, you don't remember that? And you're like, oh my God. Yeah. Like they sometimes remind you of like who you are and like that you're okay and you're going to be okay and you have that support system. So I say like my biggest advice is really leading into that and like it's okay to admit that you're struggling. Like freshman year of college, especially your first semester, if you ask a lot of student athletes, it's like one of your hardest. And it's okay, one, to like admit that it's okay to have hard times. And it's also okay for you to lean on your seniors and other athletes and whoever you need in that time.
You know, it's funny you say that. I don't mean funny like I'm laughing.
Yeah.
But I had a show a couple of weeks ago with a guy who played college football and then he
Mhm.
played in the NFL for a long time.
Mhm.
And he talked about the transition from high school to college and college to pros.
Mhm.
He's like, the transition out of high school to college is 10 times harder than college to the pros is because in the
Mhm.
pros, you don't have to go to school.
Right.
You know, half
Yeah.
your day and half your issue, you don't do half that stuff. He goes, so
Mhm.
coming out of high school, like you just said, coming out of high school, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is life-changing, life-altering events going on, and you're
Mhm.
18 years old.
Yep.
Ship
Yeah.
them off, go live over there by yourself with all these strangers, get into this tough sports, athletic, academic world, and just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to do.
No, no, it's really hard. It's very,
Um,
very hard. Yeah.
so you're in college now. Okay,
Mhm.
let's say you're in there. You went to LaSalle, but let's go. Let's say okay, we're in LaSalle now. We're at Monmouth.
Mhm.
Monmouth, where things are going good. But talk about setbacks. What kind of setbacks did you face in your athletic career? Would it be at LaSalle? Would it be in high school? Would it be in Monmouth? What kind of things hit you?
Yeah. So that's kind
You
of
got
how
a
my
laundry
career,
list, I know.
yeah, a very long list. So it started in high school, rolled my ankle probably like junior year of high school, I think. Typical athlete. I was like, I just rolled an ankle, who cares, whatever. And played on the rest of that season, went to a doctor at the end of that season, my junior season. And he was like, no, those are definitely torn ligaments. And I said, oh, okay, cool. What does that mean? And then I had my first surgery. Well, actually, second surgery. My first surgery, forgot to go backwards, was in middle school,
Oh my God.
eighth grade, playing basketball. I like just was playing a game, tried to throw the ball up. Someone pushed me. I broke four fingers in like, I broke them in all three places and had my first surgery like halfway through eighth grade, probably like around, it was actually like in December, and got like rods put into my fingers on my left hand. And then, long story short, my pinky, like the tendon wrapped around my bone. I don't really know. I was young. I don't really know what was happening. And then I had a
It
second
sounds
surgery.
painful.
Yeah, it was not fun. PT was really, really hard to a point. People, I would like scream and yell. Like people would ask, like the scheduler was like, "Well, when is Kayla coming in? Because I just don't want to be in here when she's in here." But they were trying to bend a pinky that didn't have tendons, and like you need tendons to move. So it was really painful. But I played in between the two surgeries. I was like, "It's a pinky, like whatever." And had my second surgery in April to fix my pinky and my tendons. Then I had the surgery in July of my junior year of high school for my right ankle for my ligaments. And then everything was fine. My senior year was great. Like I had a great time, great senior season, committed to LaSalle, was having a good time. And then I saw a doctor before I went to LaSalle just for like physicals, like, oh, just get the ankle checked, just, had surgery on it. So just get it checked. I'm like, okay, whatever. I just played a whole season. I go into the doctor's office, same doctor. I was like, yeah, can you just do an x-ray, make sure everything's good? I mean, I have no pain, nothing, whatever. And then he calls me in and I'm like, he's like, so there's something wrong. I was like, wait, what? Like I just played a whole AUN high school season. And he's like, so you broke a quarter size bone off of your ankle. And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? Like, I can just put in a cast or a boot for a few weeks. And he was like, well, no, it's too close to your Achilles. We don't want it to sever it. So we have to take it out. So then I had surgery August 24th, going into my freshman year during COVID. And then I moved into school my freshman year, August 28th. And so it was like 4 days later, I moved in crutches, like still on painkillers. Um, so then I was cleared probably like December, probably earlier, a little earlier than that, my freshman year. So I missed the first few games. So at LaSalle, was playing a little bit, but I was a freshman coming back from injury, which was really hard. And I'd gained a bunch of weight, and that's when like a lot of insecurity started happening and comments were being made, and I kind of just like panicked. And so I decided to leave LaSalle and go to Monmouth. And then entering Monmouth in between that summer, I was so hyper focused, as most female athletes are, about like their weight, their appearance, and all that type of stuff. And I correlated like, okay, being in shape and being a good player is being skinny. And this is when I started, not eating as much and like trying to do like really unhealthy ways of losing weight. So I got to Monmouth and I had lost like a crazy amount of weight in a small amount of time. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then like my strength coach was like, oh, something's going on. Like you're losing a lot of weight.
So they noticed.
Yeah, yeah. Because we weigh in like every Monday, not like actually weigh in. We do like what's called a Sparta scan. You just like jump to see
Yep.
like how everything is. And I was losing weight like rapidly, like 10 pounds a week, 5 pounds a week, 7 pounds a week, like consistently throughout that whole summer. And I was like, oh, this is great though. Like I felt great. I was like in shape, like all this type of stuff. And then one day I went to a workout. And then after that workout, I came home and I was like, Mom, something, I called her from work. I was like, something is not right. Like I feel so off. Like I feel dizzy, and I started panicking, like really, really bad. She took me to the hospital in Red Bank, and I was having like a crazy panic attack. My heart rate was like in the 200s, and I was just sitting there. And they were like, "You're extremely malnourished. You're extremely dehydrated. Like, what the heck is going on?" And I was like, "Oh, I just forgot to eat today." Like, I didn't want to tell you what was really going on.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like a Thursday. I walked into practice the next day, Friday, like nothing happened. And my athletic trainer was like, "Why do you have a hospital band on your wrist?" And I was like, "Oh, about that." And so I started seeing a therapist, and she like diagnosed me with like like an eating disorder, but like a
Hmm.
situational eating disorder in a sense, I guess. Not really situational. And so I really struggled with that of like figuring out how to build a healthy relationship with food and like how to accept that it's okay as an athlete to eat food.
Now,
And
how did you overcome that?
it took me a really long time. And it was not even more of like the need to be skinny or like things like that. Like it wasn't a body image thing really. It was more just like things I had heard from people in my career and during my journey that were like engraved in my head that it made it to a point where like eating food was like gave me so much anxiety. Like I would literally like pick up a bagel to try to eat it, and I would like be shaking in my hand, like be shaking. My heart rate would get really fast, and I'm like, and I don't know if it was like, oh, I'm scared of the calories, or if I was like thinking of all those things that had been said to me prior about my weight and about my body that like was just sticking with me. And so it took me a while. And this is where I say like the sisterhood comes in. Like um, I lived with three of my teammates that year, and two of them like really noticed, and they would be like, they would knock on my door at like 6 o'clock at night, be like, "Hey, like, have you eaten today?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Okay, let's go to the dining hall. Like, let's just go eat something." And I'm like, "I'm not hungry." They're like, "We don't have like," and I got to a point where I didn't want to eat in front of people. So like they were like, "Oh, like you can eat by yourself. Like, let's just go." We're like my one roommate love her to death. Like she would literally like bring me food. Like she would go to the dining hall and just like leave food outside my door, like knock, like, "Hey, I brought you something," or like they would bring over cookies and they'd be like, just have like a bite, like it's okay or whatever. And so that was like super helpful. And I think just like talking it out of with like
Yeah.
my trainers and my therapist, like admitting that it
So
was
can you talk about that? Because you mentioned like, hey, your mom took you to the hospital. You're like, I just was not eating. I just skipped whatever, and you were just weren't telling the truth.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So how did you get the courage, and when did you decide, hey, I need to tell someone about this?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever like fully told people. It took me a really long time to like say the truth. Some of my closest teammates knew, and I actually had two of my closest friends who were on the football team that year. One now that I'm dating. They like really really encouraged me to like kind of tell my story and tell like what was going on. They were like, "You look great, but like we want you to be healthy." And so I think just like having my friends, but with my coaches, I don't really think they ever like knew during the actual time of it. I think they probably knew, but like I never admitted it. And with my mom was by far the hardest person to tell. And I didn't tell her until probably like a year after. I didn't go home a
And how
lot
did
that year either.
what did she say when she saw you losing all that weight? Did she notice?
Well, she didn't really see me. Like I like was
Yeah.
very like I didn't come home a lot. I was gone like traveling a lot too with basketball. And then that season I only ended up playing the first like non-conference and I ended up tearing my ACL. So I I think she just thought I was just like eating right and working hard. But I don't know why telling her was very. I don't know. I just didn't want her to be like disappointed, and she's such a strong person that I just didn't want her to like look at me as like someone who couldn't handle naysayers or like handle the pressure or handle like what was being said. I didn't want her to know that someone had that much power over me, and I think that was what I overcame of like gaining my power back of like if I'm
Mm.
cool with like how I look and who I am, and I know who I am, and I have power, and in how people's words affect me, then it made life a lot easier after that.
That's awesome. Gaining the power back.
Mm-hmm.
For I guess the first step is realizing you gave it up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have it until you
Mm-hmm.
so you can gain it back. And then it's like, well, when did you realize you gained it back? Was there an aha moment? Hey, I
Yeah.
got this now.
Yeah. So after that, I had had a shoulder injury for a while, had gotten that seen, and they told me I needed surgery on that. And I was like, I'll just wait. And then I came back to my ACL. And normally I would be like, oh my God, like I'm hurt. So I like thought in that moment I was going to have flashbacks of like, oh my, this is LaSalle all over again. Like I got hurt. I'm going to gain a bunch of weight. Like all these things are going to go downhill and that. But I didn't have that moment. Like I tore my ACL. I found out that sucked. Like obviously I was devastated about that, but I wasn't hyper focused on like, oh my God, I can't consume food because I'm going to like get hurt. I actually like was like, oh, I need to eat protein. I need to eat this. I need to eat that. So like I can gain muscle back. Cause I think a lot of the reason I tore my ACL was because I had no muscle, no weight. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't eating anything. And I was like, oh, I think as much as this sounds kind of crazy, like tearing my ACL was somewhat of a blessing in disguise in the sense of like, it kind of forced me to like realize what was needed for recovery, which part of that was consuming food and healthy foods
Yeah.
and nutritious foods. And in that moment, like, I think of like my second day of like surgery, I was like, Dad, like I want a Chipotle bowl. Like I just want to, I just want a Chipotle bowl
Load
so
up.
bad. Yeah. And I ate like the whole thing and I was like, wow. And I felt no guilt. And I was like, that was kind of the moment I was like, all right, like I'm in a lot better of a spot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you see, your injuries it seemed like just kept coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that impact? I know we talked about the weight and the eating and that kind of stuff, but how about just your mental health and performance, knowing these injuries just kept coming?
Yeah. It was hard. I think the ones in high school weren't as bad only because like I still had made it. Like it was like that sucked, but I still was going to college. So that was great. My first year at LaSalle, my ankle injury, like it didn't affect me as much because it was kind of good as a freshman to be able to like sit on the sidelines for a little bit. My ACL was like the hardest, like mentally for me, like by far. And like I tell people all the time, I would never wish that on my worst enemy. Like not only like pain wise, it was probably the most painful injury I've had, not even actually tearing it, but like post surgery. And it was just like, it was by far the hardest year of my life, like mentally. And I just, like after I had battling the two hand surgeries, two ankle surgeries, and then it was like, I found out at that time my shoulder was still injured and I had a grade 5 AC joint separation and a torn labrum, which is like unheard of for a basketball player. Crazy injury, requires like a crazy surgery. And I remember I was like, like whatever, like I'll get that done when it needs to be done. Like that was something I could play on. And in I think also the timeline of it all, like I found out about my shoulder and then rehab for like a week or two, first game back from my ACL. Like, and I was playing great. Like that was like also, I think what was so hard is that was such a good season for me. Like I was playing so well. I had all the confidence in the world. My coaches believed in me, my family member, everyone. I believed in myself. I was happiest as ever. And then it was like just a hole, like boom. And even in that game, like I was playing great. It was like I only played like 9 minutes and I had great stats, like, and just having so much fun. And I then tore my ACL and I didn't know. Like when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know what the heck that was, but it kind of hurt. Um, got the MRI and I remember like I literally had said to my athletic trainer, I was like, when she was like, oh, the MRI will be done like Monday or whatever. I was like, I was like, B, I promise you, like, if it's my ACL, like I can't do it. Like I had said that to most people. I'm like, everyone's like, oh no, like your ACL's intact, it's fine. And I was like, I can't. Like, if it's my ACL, I really can't do it. I remember I was crying before I even found out. I was like, I can't. Like, I really can't. She's like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We go in. The doctor sits down. He's like, yeah, so you like fully tore your ACL and your
Oh my
meniscus.
God.
And I was like, I looked at V and like you could see V's face just like sunk and my face sunk. And I called my mom and my mom was like crying, like, because my mom's been my biggest supporter. Like, she's milked me back to health in every single surgery. And like, it's really hard for her too. But like mentally, that year was just hard for so many reasons. Hard because I wanted that to be my year. Like I was ready for it to be my year. It was my first year at Monmouth. And so I was like, I get this new fresh start. I'm in a happier place than ever. I'm eating again, like all these ups, and then it's just like happened so suddenly. And then I blamed myself for a while. And then like it affected so many things outside of basketball, like my social life, my relationships, school. Like it was like one of my worst semesters. It was by far actually my worst semester of school. And I just remember I just like it got to a point like that recovery is just so long that in the beginning you see such progress. And then you just start to kind of see a plateau and you're like, I don't
Mm.
even like it was hard to some days like look at the light in the tunnel. Like, what is the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, am I ever going to recover from this injury? Am I going to be the same? Like, is this my sign? A lot of like me and my mom had a lot of conversations. Like, is this my sign? Like, is this like should I just my senior year just like give it up? But I knew I couldn't do that, so I didn't. But
Well,
yeah.
let me ask you this silly question.
Mhm.
Why didn't you just quit?
I think a part of me wanted to prove that even through the darkest times, that there was always a light. Like I wanted to prove to myself, not even to anyone else, like purely to myself that like I can do it one more time. Like I've done it 4 times before. Like I'm not gonna let this one. And it was like I only had 1 year left. So I was like, you know what? I've worked so hard. And it's like, what's the point of me going through 10 months of recovery and the mental battle if I'm not gonna like try at least one more year? Like try to bring myself back to where I could be and dive into that. And like I felt like I owed myself a season of health, pretty much.
Well, I mean, what you said, through the darkest times, there's always a light.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can't see that. You know, it's when
Yeah.
it's dark, it's dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it takes that extra somebody else or
Mm-hmm.
that extra effort inside of your own, I don't want to say your mind, but in your heart to
Mm-hmm.
keep pushing and pumping,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah.
it's really easy to quit, right?
Yeah. And and trust me, there was days where like I really wanted to. Like mentally, I think one of the most mixed emotion, bittersweet moments of that whole journey was that year, my redshirt year. Because I tore my ACL in March of my sophomore season. I wasn't cleared till January of my junior season. So I had the redshirt that season. And a bittersweet moment, like my team won the CA championship. We won a ring. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I
Love
remember it
those
so,
rings. Love those
yeah,
rings.
I remember it so vividly. Like the buzzer went off, we won, everyone celebrating, we cut down the net, and I was like cheering and yelling. And my boyfriend and my mom at the time both just saw me just like my face just, and they're like, they both came to me like, I know, I know. And like in that moment, it was like, we did it, but it's like, it was also kind of like they did it. Like I didn't. And like your goal as an athlete is always to win a championship.
Yeah.
And it sucked that like I wasn't a part of that. But then my teammates saw that. And a lot of my teammates like texted me, came up to me like, you know what? Like you practice with us every day. You were a great leader. Like you coach us on the sidelines. Like you are also a part of this and you're the reason we're also here too. Like don't take that for granted. And I think hearing that made me have this sense of like, well, we can come back and do this again. And like I can actually be a part of this. And I have people who believe that around me.
And your injury list, you know, it's like a medical textbook,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
It's like it's yeah, you're not the norm. Like some guys have one, some girls have this, but it's like like a laundry list of
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
And you just kept coming back, which talks about your resilience, your grit, your drive, your discipline,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And you know, I'm going to bring it back to your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you why. Because what you said to me before, when you were a little girl, your mom saying, "I'm not talking for you.
Mm-hmm.
You want something? Open your mouth."
Mm-hmm.
You know, which encouraged you at that such young age to stand up for yourself and fight,
Yeah.
even though you weren't really fighting. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it encouraged you, and look at
Yeah.
what it's turned into.
Yeah. No, I mean, I credit a lot. I credit everything, honestly, that I've been through and gotten through to my parents, both of them. My dad is like a super, super goofy human being. Like he is so goofy. He will talk your ear off. Like get that from him.
Right?
And like, there was days where it was hard and he was always like, I love you, like made some silly dad joke that made me laugh. But my mom was also like the person who would cry with me. Like she, like every injury I had, like she felt that in her heart and soul. And there was moments that people on my team think are so funny, like my mom like crying after a game of like something so silly. But I think like having her by my side and so close to school was like so like beneficial.
Yeah.
And she was always there. And I think it also made me be able to let my guard down. Because my mom's like, everyone knows, like, my mom is really, really tough. And she always has been. But I think seeing her be vulnerable also made me feel like I could be vulnerable. And her like instilling so much confidence and belief in me. Literally, like I could call her, I could call her 17 times a day and she's gonna pick up every time, even though it could be something so stupid. And so having that was like really, 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 really nice. And even when I was young, like in my basketball career in high school, like she never forced me to like go to the gym,
Right.
to eat right. She never forced me to like, she was always and this I think was what made it so important. She literally so many times had said to me, like, I love you whether you play basketball or not. Like, if you don't want to do this anymore, don't. Like, do not do this for anyone but yourself. Like, I will love you and support you. And if you want to go to school and just join a sorority or you want to just do whatever, go ahead. Like, I want you to know that. And she's like, whatever you do, I just want you to be happy, healthy, and successful. Like, that's really it. And I think knowing that took the pressure off, especially through injuries. Like if I didn't come back how I was before, I knew she was still going to be there.
Still
And I
there.
had friends that were like that too. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, I want to touch on something you just said. It's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about.
yeah,
But you said you call your mom 17 times, excuse me, in one day and she picks up the phone, right?
yeah.
Can you talk about that as a child? I don't mean as you're a young woman, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean as a child of a parent,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean to you as the child
Yeah.
when you call mom or dad and they actually pick it up?
Um, it's like I can't even describe. I love like my parents are the best, and because what I think my mom says this all the time, and she probably gets really annoyed, but she says it all the time. She's like, I try to pick up when I can because she's like, what if there's a call where you really do need me?
Right.
Like, and I think that's where like it's so appreciated because there has been a lot of times, especially my last season at Monmouth and that ACL season, where I did call my dad like 3 times a day, like on the phone crying, and like he picked up all 3 times. Or I'd call my mom like, "Mom, can I come home today? Like, can you do this? Can you do that? Or whatever." And sometimes I just needed to have like a conversation with somebody who I trusted, who knew me, to instill that confidence back, or just to talk about anything besides basketball and my knee. Like my mom also understood that. And so I think that was nice. It's just nice to know that no matter how many times I call, they're going to pick up the phone
Yeah.
because it just shows how much they support and like love me. And that's ultimately all you can really ask for.
That's awesome. That's it sounds like you have an awesome relationship with your parents,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
kind of tells us why you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's a correlation with that.
Yeah.
You know? So your athletic career is over?
Mm-hmm.
Sure?
Yeah.
Because you said that once before, right? I think I'm
Yeah.
done. Well, are you really done?
Yeah. I mean, if you asked me that like 2 months ago, maybe I would have been like, I don't know. I have 2 years of eligibility left.
That's what I mean. Are you
So,
really?
but I'm done. Yeah. I'm ready to move on. Yeah.
Okay, so if the coach calls, hey, you got one more in you?
Yeah. Nope.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
So which leads me to my next question
Mhm.
is what are your biggest concerns now about transitioning out of sports? Because what I know personally,
Mm.
what I've heard from all the athletes that I interview is, man, when it's over, it's hard to be over.
Mhm.
Can you talk about your thoughts and concerns about it transitioning out of sports now into the next phase of your life?
Yeah. Um, that transition was so much harder than I was gonna ever realize. Because there is days like as much as I knew I was ready, and especially after my last season, I was like, I don't have it in me. I don't. My fight is gone, and I never want to do something like half-ass. Like,
Mhm.
and so, but there was a lot of days, especially like July, June and July, because I graduated in May, where I was like, did I make the wrong decision? Like, there's a lot of, I think with me too, because there's still like eligibility hanging there. Like, there's 2 years that could possibly still be. And so I think having to accept that that's just not my path anymore. And it took a while for me to realize that like basketball did not like define who I was as a person. It was just something I was good at and I did. And figuring out different hobbies in my life that I also am really good at and that I also really enjoy, and embracing those things was super important. But people, I don't think athletes talk about it enough openly about like how like really, really, really mentally hard that transition is. Like I really struggled, especially like in June, like when school was like finally done and I like actually graduated and had to walk away. Like it was really hard. And like now I'm seeing like all my teammates go back to school for summer sessions and like training. And like there was a lot of times I felt guilt of like, did I make the right decision? Like, should I have stayed? And like even just guilt when you're an athlete, you have so many things like the discipline, like in like it's ingrained in your brain. And so like there was a lot of days where I'd wake up on like a Monday and be like, wow, like I have nothing on my schedule. Like this is like, and that would bring me like anxiety. Like
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God, like there has to be something because I'm
Yeah.
just so used to a regimented schedule. And like there was times where it was like really lonely and really just like confusing of like there was days where I'm like, I love having freedom and not having a set schedule. And there was days where I'm like, I'm losing my mind. I'm so bored. Like
Yeah.
I'm an only child. I don't have siblings. I only live I just me and my mom who live together. So when she's gone at work and busy and it's just me and it's like
Bored.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really like it. And I also think it was hard to figure out what my future looked like because I never had to. For 10 years of my life, since I was in fourth grade, I
Yeah.
knew exactly what the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year was going to look like. And in college, same thing. We had set, everything was set. Like I knew I had 4 days for Christmas. I knew I had summer session. I knew I had this. And my schedules were made for me. There were so many things that were done for me in college that I do feel like a part of me felt like college athletics helped me in so many ways, but I do feel like there was a part of me who felt unprepared
Hmm.
leaving. And I think that was because I was too scared to ask for certain opportunities while I was playing. And I felt like, oh, I couldn't do this internship or I couldn't do this job or do certain things because like we have practice or we have things and I didn't want to do that to my team. But that's also something I would say, like, if you're a college athlete now, like ask your coach. Worst case scenario, they say no. But
Right.
like I wish I took more of those opportunities and I wish that coaches brought in or spoke more about like even just like little stuff, how to make a resume. Like I literally had to ask like my mom and a bunch of people like afterwards, like, how do I make a resume?
Yeah.
Like, I never learned that.
It's preparing for life after the game.
And
You know,
like
'cause
you don't get that a lot.
no,
Yeah.
no, and here's where the pressure comes in. Division I sports, it's a business.
Hmm.
Oh, it's just a game. No, it's not.
No, it's
It's a
definitely
business.
business.
And you're getting paid to play basketball.
Hmm.
You're not getting paid to go to class.
Right.
Because if you were just going to class and not playing basketball, you wouldn't be getting paid.
Right.
So let's face reality and reality.
Hmm.
But when you go to the coach and say, "Hey, coach, I got this possibility for an internship to help prepare me for life when this is all over."
Hmm.
Well, what's the first of the coach's typical? I'm not saying yours, but
Hmm.
many coaches' reactions are, "Well, how's it going to affect the team?
Yeah.
How's it going to
What
affect
is it?
practice?"
Right. Like when the time is it? Can you do it after
Yeah,
practice? Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So, and that's what inflicts this fear of, do I really ask for this? Now, if I do ask for
Hmm.
it, is the coach going to say, well, she doesn't really care about the team. She
Hmm.
cares more about herself. So if she cares more about the team or
Yeah.
about herself than the team, you can go sit over there.
Yeah. And
And that does
that's,
happen.
yeah. And it's scary. And you just don't, it's a hard balance to figure out of like, when do I kind of like do something for myself in a sense and to prepare you for the real world. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's also why, as sad as it is, I have friends and I know people who are athletes who literally stayed in their sports for fifth, sixth, seventh years with no intentions of playing professionally, but they just because they were scared. They're like, I'd rather just play, even though
Yeah.
I'm not happy anymore, because I don't want to have to figure out my life.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know. Like, I have no idea. And even for like me, like trying to find a job and stuff like that, like we're so like at this like I don't want to say like a celebrity status, but like an elite status in as an athlete, especially at the D1 level or higher levels. And now you're like sitting here like I can't even get an interview, like
Yeah.
or like I don't even know how to write a resume or like oh I did an interview and they didn't choose me. It's like a reality check for a lot of athletes because like
Yeah.
you're used to being like the person everyone wants to be around and like people hyping you up and like you being not superior but like elite to people and then you get in the real world and it humbles you very quickly.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
It's when that, if you notice as a student athlete, when people talk to you, they talk more about sports than they do about athletes or your academics or your
Mhm.
job. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, what about sport? This, how's the game? How's the
Yeah.
team? How's the season looking? It's not like, hey,
Yeah.
how's your academics? How's your grades? What's your job? You know?
Right.
So you mentioned mom and dad a lot, which is really great.
Mhm.
And to me, I think it's just my opinion, but it's not always right, is that your parents should be the number one in support mechanism.
Yeah.
But let's just put mom and dad on the side for a second, which is hard to do. I don't
Mhm.
mean to do it in any bad way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so what about coaches, teammates, professors, maybe teammates, parents? Talk about other people that were supportive that could have been really crucial in your development.
Yeah. There was a few. I'll start with professors. My junior year, my senior year, well, not my senior year, fall semester, spring semester. I had professors for my major taking like crazy courses that were just like so supportive. And I had actually three teachers in the psych department because I was psych major who were just so supportive. One of my professors, um, Professor Danella, she's great. Everyone knows her at Monmouth. She would like text me all the time, like, "Oh, like you just saw Caitlin Clark just broke another record," or she'd be like, she'd ask me for advice on things, and like she was always like so understanding of giving respect and giving us our flowers of like it's really hard to be a student athlete, and like I understand. Like I think there was one day I was like, Professor Danella, like I'm so tired, like I really just don't have like I don't even have the brain capacity right now. And she was like, I get it, like I get it, like let's
Was
figure it
she a
out.
former athlete?
No, her daughter does play a sport though.
Okay.
I think she's in high school, but
Okay.
I just think she has a lot of respect for women, and she teaches a psych of women class,
Yeah.
and she has so much respect for women and athletes and women who do a lot, like single mothers and stuff like that. And then I had Professor Van Volkum, and she was great. Dr. C was my thesis teacher or whatever. And they were great. Like they just like made going to class so fun. And like it's little stuff like that that like little did they know, like maybe they didn't have a long conversation with me about basketball, but like sometimes I just needed to like get off the court and go to class and actually enjoy it and like
Yeah.
have fun. And like they would tell stories that were so like heartwarming and made all the anxieties go away. And especially my thesis teacher, Dr. C, like she was great. Like she was always like super supportive, and we joke around all the time. She helped me like figure out what I want to do next steps, which was really cool to have. So professor wise, they were really cool. And then like my friends, I have a few. One of my teammates from LaSalle, she transferred to Monmouth actually after me,
That's
like two
great.
years. Yeah, 2 years after me. She's one of my closest friends, and like I think out of all people, like she understood it the most. We lived together my last year, and like she got it. Like she was at LaSalle with me, and she came to Monmouth, so she knows the ins and outs of both schools. And I think having her by my side was like awesome. And building relationships. One of my other really close friends, she is from Red Bank, and we've known each other for again a really long time. And same thing, like she knew me before this and knew who I was before the injuries and before everything. And so like just having like them, and there's a few freshmen, my roommates, they were such a support system. But I also have like friends at home who were super supportive. One of my best friends played football at Delaware. I could always call him, and like he understood. And like a lot of times I think people think supportive like, okay, I'm gonna call and like rant about sad stories. Like sometimes you just need a laugh. And
Yeah.
like your closest people know when that is. And then the three people who were probably like most critical was my AAU coach in throughout high school and stuff. He was just like the most supportive, super like tough love type of guy, which is what I love. Like he's the first one to be like, "Hey, you're not showing up today how you're supposed to. Like you're not doing enough." And he's also the first person to be like, "Hey, I got you if you don't have it today." Um, so that was great. And then my assistant coach at Monmouth, Coach Sean, love that guy. Like absolutely love him. Like without him, I probably would have fallen to pieces like multiple times. Like I probably would have like walked out of practice or like hung up my jersey, didn't go like wouldn't go to class. Like I could literally walk and be like, Coach Sean. He'd be like, "What's up, Kay?" And I'd be like, "I'm really, really stressed about this exam." He's like, "All right, well, what is it about? Like, tell me about your class. Tell me about your exam." He would always ask, like, "How was your lab? How was your presentation?" He'd be like, "How's Jordan? Like, I heard they have a game today." Jordan's my boyfriend. But he'd be like, "How's Jordan? Like, I heard that they have a game today. Like, how's his ankle? Like," and I don't think coaches sometimes realize how meaningful that is to like be recognized as a person and
Yeah.
not just as a player. And he always did that, like literally all the time. And then the last person, my boyfriend, he played football at Monmouth, and so he was so supportive in so many different things: injury, stress of school, um, exams, hardships with friends, body image stuff, like literally anything. And like same thing as my parents. Like could call him 10 times a day and he's gonna pick up. And so having that group of people, like I literally would not have made it without them.
You got an army.
Yeah. And they're
I
all
mean,
like different. I think that's what's
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
that is so cool. And what's unique about what you said, and I'm just gonna make a guess here.
Mm-hmm.
You named a bunch of professors.
Yeah.
You don't find that many professors that are truly understanding of an athlete's world.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean any disrespect to them because most of them weren't athletes themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like, all right, I gotta do this girl a favor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's almost like their way they look at it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like yours, man, that must have been awesome, or they were
Yeah.
supportive of you.
Yeah. But I also think there's a balance. Like I think that if you as an athlete, I think sometimes us athletes take advantage of
Okay.
being an athlete. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's professors who don't understand. But I think there is that balance. And I think a lot of it's like open communication. Like I would be like, hey, like we have this assignment due on Thursday, but I play Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So like I don't really know how it's gonna work. And like so I would try my best to openly communicate with them. And every time I didn't have an athletic event, like I would try my best to turn in assignments that were quality assignments and on time. So that if I did have a moment where athletics became an issue, that I had built a good enough relationship
Yep.
and reputation with them.
Yeah. So you didn't take advantage of it, and they saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw the hard work you put in and the effort you put in and the results that you got too. Where
Yeah.
you're right. There are some athletes, gotta say it, that are gonna take advantage of the advantage.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And that's what, and those guys or girls, which there's not a ton of them, but there's enough out there for people to notice. Those are the ones that, for lack of better words, piss the professors off.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
other students who say,
Yeah.
hey, these athletes, they get everything handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate, there's always a bad apple somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which kind of,
Trickles down sometimes too.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
so Jordan's still playing?
Yeah. Yep.
What year is he?
He's a 6th year senior.
All
Six
right.
year. Yeah. 6 year senior.
So
He's
what?
at Liberty now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's big time football.
Yeah. Yeah. Go
What position is he?
Flames.
What position is he?
He's a left tackle. He's an offensive lineman.
So he's a big guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. So it says he got a shot at the next level?
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right.
think he does. He thinks he does, and that's all that really matters, right? He thinks he does, so he does.
Well, tell him, where's he from?
He's from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, so not that far.
No.
So next week, I have a guest on. His name is Kevin Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
He owns Test Training Facility.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that? What that is?
No, but I feel like I've heard the name Kevin Dunn before.
Okay. He's a bigwig in the NFL combine prep world.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's looking for a facility to train with and to, you know what I mean? It's right here it's in Martinsville, not far.
Mm-hmm.
And from Brooklyn, it's not that far, but he's going to talk about his whole system program next week. Well, he's on the show next week. He's not going to
Yeah.
air for a couple of weeks, but I
Yeah.
can make the contact if he's looking for something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, which
Mhm.
will be good. It's good, and he has one more year left.
He has this season and the next season.
All right, all right,
Yeah, he has 2 left.
good, all right. So post graduation,
Yeah.
now what? Right? Well, let me take a step back for a second. It's What advice can you give college athletes about transitioning out of school?
Mhm.
right? That next step of what to look for, what to prepare for, because it sounds like you got your stuff together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Some girls or guys don't. How can they get themselves ready and geared up for that? Okay, I'm done. Let's get out of here. Let's go find a career.
I think the biggest thing I would say is just like relax for a half a second. Um, because we've always been on go, 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 go. And I think me taking time in June and July to just like kind of like not like bed rot, but like just do what I wanted to do kind of made me realize what I actually wanted to do. And so I think taking that time to like acknowledge, yes, that your athletic career is over, but also just to have a little bit of fun and dive deeper into relationships, or that book you always want to read but never got to, or that show you wanted to watch but didn't have time to, like doing stuff that makes you happy, because it's hard to make a decision and see a future and figure out your future when you're like not happy and you're so uncertain. So I think finding that certainty within yourself and your hobbies and what you like, and also finding that sense of happiness outside of your sport first, is so, so crucial, because then it helps you move on to the next step. But it's hard to move on and see a future and take those next steps if you're still holding on to the past. So like I think for me, it was so nice to just take a month or two just to be Kayla. Like no
Yeah.
basketball, no school, no figuring out jobs, like literally just taking the time to figure out what do I want and who am I. And then it made like job searching and starting my master's like great. Like I
Yeah.
loved it. And it's also, I feel like the biggest thing I want to say, it's okay to like not succeed the first time. As athletes, like that's something that we always want to do, is like succeed the first time. We don't want to take 6 times to do a drill right, or like whatever it is, but it's okay. Like the real world in athletics is so different. I think like comparison is like the thief of joy. Everyone says like you can't compare who you are as an athlete necessarily to who you're going to be as like an employer. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes that's hard because like I said earlier, you get to an interview and you're like so ready and prepared and you think you got it, and then you don't, and it's like, oh my God, like what the heck? Like this is I'm an athlete. Like what are you talking about? So I
Yeah.
think kind of like disassociating those two identities, because they're different identities,
It's like
is
it's
like
like
big.
decompress a little bit.
Like yeah, like just my mom kept saying to me like just take a chill pill, like just relax. And then like I'm here to say it all works out. Like you're gonna find where you're meant to be, and it's gonna find you.
What you just said, it all works out. Was that what is that what you say, or is what your mom says?
So she was one who said it a lot first. And then I started telling myself that. Like I would call her again the 17 times a day. I would like, so mom, so like I'm trying to apply to like these 16 different jobs. Like, is this smart? And she's like, whoa, like you literally just graduated, like relax. And she'd be like, it'll all work out. And I'm like, I'm like looking at her like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the whole time in my head, I'm like, it's not gonna work out. Like I got, and then it just took a moment of like realizing, like thinking about all my few like old teammates that I had, like what actually did all work out for them. Like they're all like have successful jobs and are happy, and they've been
Yeah.
a year, 2 years, 3 years post grad. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah,
Everything always works out,
yeah,
right? And what I tell people, I said, listen, the hardest thing you ever did in your life, whatever it is, did you die?
right, nah,
No. So it works out. Tomorrow's another day.
yep,
So let's talk about identity. You mentioned that a couple of times. Basketball's over. Everybody
mm-hmm.
knows you as this great basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you feel about your own identity, what the rest of the world is going to see and know about you, and how do you start to tell the world, hey, this is the new me?
Yeah. I'm actually so excited. I think when you get so wrapped up in your sport, you forget the other like amazing qualities of yourself and like other things that you bring to the table. And I like sometimes like was saddened by the fact that like I'm a really good student and I love learning. And like that's something that people can make fun of me for all the time, but it's fine. But I love learning, and I love mental health. Like it's a huge thing that's part of me. I love talking about mental health. Um, I love being goofy. Like there's so many aspects of me that I love that I didn't really get to express, because like you said, when people talk to you, the first thing they're like, oh, you're an athlete. And then that's the whole conversation. Like you
Right,
don't get to know anything else.
right.
That maybe I could be like a comedian. You wouldn't know. You didn't ask. And
You'd be
so
a
I
good
think I'm
comedian.
excited. No, but I think I'm excited to like step into this new identity of being, a student, an employer, a girlfriend, a friend, a daughter, like all of those other identities that I've always had that like were never recognized and I didn't feel like I gave enough time to. I'm excited to like figure out what that looks like. And I'm excited to complete my master's, and I'm excited to start working in the psych world because it's something that I'm so, so passionate about that kind of got pushed back because that's what was my first passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what you just said is huge, and I hope everybody heard that. Say, be excited about the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, don't rely on the past. Don't dwell in the past, even though the past is pretty cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you find, especially the guys, the guy athletes, right? They're always
Yeah.
talking about. Like, I get together with my friends from high school, which was a long, long time ago, and we still talk about. I'm like, okay, here we go. But
Yep.
I get wrapped up in it too, because we
Yeah.
were, as athletes growing up, we were really good.
Mm-hmm.
We were state champs, all kinds of stuff. Had a lot of fun, and you never forget it.
Yeah.
And we talk more about the parties after the games. We talk more about, all that kind of goofy stuff. We don't really even
Mm-hmm.
talk about the game. Remember
Right.
that party? Remember this? Remember that?
Yeah.
And you never get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, what you said is get excited about the next step in your
Mm-hmm.
life. Because you're so young. You
Yeah.
have such a long road
Yes.
ahead of you.
Yep.
That athletic world that you lived in would seem like such a big part of your life. As you
Mm-hmm.
progress in age, I don't want to wish your life away, but that athletic world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller part of your life to like, hey, you know what? It's just a fraction of what I was years
Yeah.
ago, and all
Mm-hmm.
the impact and the things you can do going forward. It's like, it's exciting,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
I'm
is
so
good.
excited. Yeah.
So looking back on whatever, obviously it's not like you're 40 years old and we're looking back on a long time here.
Yeah.
Not that 40 is old. Um, What would you do differently? Would there be anything you would change?
See, a lot of people would think I would say like quote unquote change my injuries or like not keep playing. Like those things I don't regret at all. I think they have made me the person I am today. I think the biggest thing I would change is standing up for myself a little more, I think, is a big thing. And like speaking out about whether or not things that were going on behind closed doors, or whether it was speaking up for myself, speaking up for a teammate, speaking up for a friend, speaking up for women's athletics in general, like being a voice more. I feel like I've done that a lot more post grad because I was kind of scared to do it during. But there are so many ways you can go about like being a positive outlook and being a positive light for people who need it without like causing issues. And so I think like that's something I would change. I feel like I was really timid my first 3 years in college, of kind of just not being vocal, whether it was for me or for someone else. So I think that's a big thing. Like it's okay to like stand up for yourself a little bit, and
Yeah,
you are of value and you are of worth. And it is a business, and technically we're the product, but you can't have a business without a product. So like
right.
you also have to remember that you're serving a purpose too, and that you bring value, and to never let that value go unappreciated.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But you said a second ago, be a positive light for others. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in athletics too, like they feel so alone. Like they feel like nobody else gets it. And I think because as athletes, you're told to like suck it up, like leave everything off the court, leave everything off the field. And like that's not cool sometimes. And like sometimes it's not easy to do. Like I don't think people realize how hard it is to like go from like failing an exam, or going from not seeing your family for months, or like hearing of a someone passing, or whatever it is, coming off of like having the flu or COVID or something like that, and having to just like wash it all away for a 40-minute game. Like it's a lot harder said than done. And I think it would be nice if there was like, when I was going through it, whether it was injury recovery, whether it was the eating disorder, or whatever, whether it was I was sick or struggling academically, I think it would have been so nice to like be able to have someone that I could talk to, or like have athletes who talked about it more frequently. And I think now it's becoming more of a thing of athletes like really speaking on it. But I want to be that person for someone to like one advocate for working hard and resilience, but also to advocate for like have fun outside of your sport. Like it's okay to like be the player who sits on the bench. It's okay to be the player who doesn't play every minute. It's okay to like miss a shot or whatever case may be. Like it's okay. It's also okay to walk away if that's what is best for you. And I think sometimes athletes in college who are really struggling need to hear that. And I think that's what I mean by like the light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel. Cause like you said earlier, there's times in your darkest times that you just don't see a light. And like maybe me saying something as so simple as like, hey, it's okay to like take an off day could be that that light for
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah.
And it's hard to walk away.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
what you're doing right now, personally and professionally, with 2 years left of eligibility,
Mhm.
it's hard to walk away from something you love doing for so many years.
Yeah.
It's hard. You got to have a lot of mental courage and strength for that,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
is huge. So career wise, what's the future looking like? What's your career path? What are you looking to accomplish? What are you looking to do?
Yeah. So I am just started my master's yesterday in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm hoping to get my degree in counseling and pass my licensing exams to become a licensed professional counselor. And then I'm also getting a certificate, a master's certificate in violence, loss, and trauma counseling to work with, like, a big thing for me is I'd love to work with vets. Both my parents are veterans. So I'd really like to work with vets who have PTSD, or work with, kids of traumatic experiences and stuff like that. And to do that long term for a little bit. And then ultimately, the goal would be to go back to school and get the qualifications and things I need to become a sports psychologist. Cause I just think that's like the perfect place for me to be.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, how long would that take?
So it'd be 2 years of a master's, 3 years um, of like a, not necessarily a doctorate program, but like a PhD of psychology to be a sports psychologist. So it'll take a couple of years, but I would like to first work with just like patients first, clients, like I said, with my master's, and then go back to school potentially. But right now I'm working. Well, I'm starting a new job working as a behavioral technician. So
Okay.
yeah,
So it's constantly giving back.
yeah, yep,
That's really what you're doing,
yeah,
and to support and to help others
hmm
who sometimes just they can't help themselves.
yeah. And I think that's the thing for me is like recognizing the things that like meant were so meaningful for me, and like for me, like going to therapy like was so like it just took so much weight off my shoulder. Like as much as like there's this stigma that's kind of like getting easier and easier, but there is a
Yeah.
big stigma on athletes, men, African Americans, like things like that, getting help and going to therapy. And like sometimes I think people think of therapy as like you're sitting there and like saying like, oh, I'm admitting to like I have all these problems, and
Yeah.
you're like having to trust somebody. But sometimes like I would go to therapy and I wouldn't really have much to say. Like I would
Mhm.
just like go and be like, you know what, today was great. This week was great actually, and we
Yeah.
would talk about why it was great and acknowledge those things. And I think I want to be that for somebody. Like I love my therapist so much. She's great, and she was so helpful just figuring out who I am as a person and always reminding me that like I'm doing enough and that I'm a cool person. And like
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to hear that from like someone who doesn't have any type of stake in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think a lot of people forget, and I am not trained in this at all, zero. But what I think a lot of people forget is that therapy sometimes is just to help you look at things differently than through the eyes of what you see.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
it. You don't have to feel different. You just got to look at things a little different. And
hmm
sometimes when you look at things just a little different, you feel different.
Yeah, for
You know what I mean?
sure. Yes. Yep.
So that's what I think about it.
Yeah.
So Kayla, this is awesome. I mean, your story is incredible, and I know we probably missed some other stuff with regards to injuries and craziness and recovery and rehab and all that stuff. But is there anything I haven't asked you yet that you think you want people to know we haven't talked about?
The only thing I would say is just have fun. Like, don't forget that life is fun. College is fun. High school is really fun too. Being an adult is fun. Like, I just think people sometimes take things for granted. So, like, remember to find the joy in the fun in everything you do. That's the only thing that I would say. My last thing.
Find the joy and fun. I'm just writing that down in things you do, right? It's hard sometimes because the
hmm
pressure, like we said before in the very beginning of our conversation over an hour ago now, the pressure to perform takes away the fun,
hmm
you know? And
Yep.
sometimes the people that surround you and pile on that pressure take away the fun,
Yeah.
you know?
hmm
And what I think, you're young men and young women, I get it. But as you get older, like me, you guys are just still kids
Yeah.
trying to grow and develop under all that pressure.
Hmm.
Like you said before, though, is a privilege
Hmm.
if you handle it correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
So this has been really a lot of fun. Thanks for being on, on the show. I can't wait for this to go live and people to hear your story. You're going to impact and influence so many people out there, and I can't wait to see what you do in your future. I don't want to, again, like I said before, I don't want to wish your life away, but I mean, all the things you're looking to do, and go back into the sports world, and be a therapist or psychologist for them, and just impact how many more people. How's that ripple effect going to keep going?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wish you the best of luck, and I want you to come back in the future and tell us more about what you're doing.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You got it.